And then it's just this cyclical cycle of, oh my God, I overate again. And I first learned about Ozempic in 2016 before it existed under the name brand of Saxenda. Self-sabotage in itself is actually the side effect of low self-love. So if you're a mother and you do everything for your kids and you're eating like the crusts and you're always on the go and you're never sitting down and you're not taking care of yourself, or you have a negative self-talk, like you're literally modeling that for your children.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the 20s Detox. I'm Bianca, your host, where we dive into all the things I'm learning and unlearning in my 20s to elevate this decade. This week, I have a wonderful guest. Oh my goodness. She was so amazing in this episode, and I still think about it. Jiordana Saade. She is a passionate clinical nutritionist, hypnotherapist, and founder of the Mindful Clinic. She is on a mission to change the way we view the relationship between nutrition, the mind, the body, money, family, romantic partners, and our connection to food. She has helped over 1,000 women make lasting changes in their eating behaviors and reprogram their nervous system to overcome self-sabotage. Especially with the theme we're having on the 20s Detox, She Breaks Barriers. We're breaking the barrier of our mindset towards food, how we view food, how women in general treat food, and how it can also impact our children, impact people around us, and even how it digests in our body. I'm so grateful to have her on. She's amazing. Without further ado, let's dive into the episode. Welcome to the 20s Detox podcast. I feel honored to bring somebody like you. I was watching your TED Talk the other day and I'm like, this is incredible. This is so good. And I love your message. And why don't we just get into you, like starting off introducing yourself, like what you do, who you are, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of things.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much, Bianca, for having me. It's an honor to be here. I guess I'll start kind of right from the beginning because my story is a huge part of like what I do, why I do what I do, is it's very, very specific. But anyways, my story started when I was super young. So this was a long time ago. Like I'm unfortunately no longer in my 20s. I'm in my 30s now. But really, when I was a young kid, obesity rates were really low. So I was obese as a child and I was the only obese kid in class. And of course, this brings a lot of like negative attention. I had no friends. There was like bullying. And I remember when I was 8 years old, I had this like, I'm going to put in quotations here, traumatic experience happen to me where I had a really big crush on this boy. I've always been like a big lover girl, but I had this really big crush on this boy and we were playing tag at recess and I tagged him and in front of the whole school, he yelled, "Fatty caught me." And I was mortified because really, I just learned at a young age, like I knew that the more I ate, the bigger that I got. And I knew that I looked very different from everybody else. And this created a lot of separation between me and like everybody else. So I knew I didn't fit in. I knew I needed to do something about it. And this was kind of like the last straw moment. So I went home that day and I was like, I'm going to go on a diet. And I didn't know what that meant. So I just like starved myself and I lost weight at 8 and I received a lot of validation from the people around me. So all of a sudden I had friends. The cutest boy in school started talking to me. My parents were like, oh, now we can see that beautiful face of yours. My doctor said she was proud of me. And so really at a young age, I learned that being thin meant I was lovable and being overweight meant I wasn't. And we can even generalize that to like good and bad. And so I spent the next 2 decades really just like following that trend. So I went through like huge eating disorders, which eventually ended up in substance abuse. And when I was 21, I was an alcoholic and a cocaine addict, and I was kicked out of university. And my parents brought me home from Montreal, which is where I went to university, and I met my now ex-husband, but I got pregnant. And that baby just like saved my life because in this pregnancy, I could no longer use any of these substances, but the one thing where it all started came back with full force, and that was this really unhealthy relationship to eating and food. And so I noticed in this pregnancy, I was eating in a very addictive way. Like, I mean, through pregnancy, it's very normal to gain weight. I gained like 90 pounds. So like, it was like a really extreme amount. And I knew something was not right. So I had my son, and when he was 9 months old, I was like, I got to get down to the bottom of this eating disorder. So I decided to become a nutritionist. So I graduated at the Institute of Holistic Nutritionists as valedictorian with first class honors. And I was hired right out of school to work with a medical doctor. And so I'm building this like incredible obesity clinic with him. And we're seeing like hundreds and hundreds of patients. And I'm handing out meal plan after meal plan, and like nobody's getting any better. And at this point, I knew everything about nutrition, but I was still really stuck in this, we'll call it orthorexia type of ways. Like I was terrified of having any sugar. Everything had to be super low carb. Like I was like afraid of eating bananas, and I'm in this obesity clinic and I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody knows that an apple is healthier than a chocolate bar, right? Like most people know that, but some people continually choose the chocolate bar anyways, despite wanting to be healthy. So I was like, this isn't an issue of meal plans. Like there's nothing I can teach these people that's going to like get them to self-sabotage. And so it became very clear to me at that time that eating, especially when we have an unhealthy relationship to food, and obesity in general, is actually more of a psychological issue than it is a lack of willpower or a lack of discipline. And so I became really obsessed with understanding the human tendency to self-sabotage in our relationship to food. And then I went back to school to do a master's and now PhD in behavioral neuroscience. And I wrote my thesis on eating psychopathology in the form of overconsumption, so like food addiction, et cetera. And honestly, through this process, I healed my own relationship to myself and my body, and it was so powerful. I never intended on starting a business. It just was so powerful. I knew I had to share it with others. And then one thing led to another, and here we are.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. It's actually so relatable. I was thinking back to my university years where there were so many women in my life who had restrictive eating. Yeah. And the one thing that they would say, but I'm getting the validation. Mm-hmm. Like people, like boys are liking me now. Mm-hmm. Everybody's saying I look healthy. Mm-hmm. And that whole thing of saying like, oh, you're thinner, that means you're fitter. It's not really true, or like healthier. And I actually just did like a nutrition class recently because I'm like a health coach in training. But one of them that we touched on was obesity and how it is so much more complex than what society labels it as. Yeah. That it's like, oh, they're just not eating healthy, or they're just not moving their body enough. And it can actually be so much deeper. So I really appreciate you sharing that and like touching on that. Food psychology, what does that really mean though? Can we break that down?
So in a nutshell, to put it as like user friendly as possible, food psychology is not about what we eat. It's about why we eat. And when I understood this process, it was so powerful to me because growing up, I always had friends and they were all really thin, and they would never like think about food. Like we'd be playing outside and I'm like, are we going to have a snack? Or like, what are we having for dinner? Like food was constantly on my mind, but it's almost like this idea of like, they would eat to live rather than live to eat. And so food psychology, again, in a nutshell, it's not really about what we eat. And I can tell you right now, like I'm the healthiest, the leanest I've ever been, and I eat everything. Like I do not want to live in a world where I can't eat cake. Like that's just like, I'm not doing that. Oh. So, but I'm not emotionally eating. I'm not using food as a coping mechanism. I'm not binging and restricting. And so a couple bites of cake is normally enough for me, not because I'm restricting myself, but because truly my brain has received everything it needs in that moment. And so the psychology of eating, or the psychology of food, it really focuses on the ability to like eat whatever you want, but rewiring or resetting almost the motivation to engage in eating.
Yeah, that's so true. I also found myself I never was clinically diagnosed with an eating disorder, but there was a period of time where I was in like restrictive eating behaviors. And you mentioned it, like I was afraid to eat a banana. Like I remember those moments as well, like really being at this like tug of war with myself when I'd want to indulge in something and I'd see everybody else around me completely fine. And I'm like, totally at war with myself and my brain, being like, just eat it, you'll be okay. And I'm so unfortunate that like there's actually so many women out there that do struggle with that. And I forgot that food is like a basic need. When you think of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like it's at the bottom. Yeah. So it's so interesting that we do use it for like punishment, pleasure. And that was the thing for me that I needed to realize, oh, I need to stop that. Like regardless, and you said this in your TED Talk, like everybody needs food. It shouldn't be like a reward, like, oh, you did a good job this day or this week. Like you didn't overindulge. You didn't do that. You deserve that. Or if you didn't, you're like, oh, I would punish myself. Like I'd be like, nope, you're not having this full dinner.
Yeah, you touched on so many nuggets right there. Like we could do an entire podcast on 5 of the things that you just said. But the one thing that I really want to emphasize is, first of all, you're not alone. Literally, and I don't want to just generalize to women. It's just that I work primarily with women, but any relationship to food is a mother wound. Like it does come from that maternal line, and you can have the most wonderful mother in the whole entire world. This isn't like mom's fault or anything. In my case, it genuinely is my mom's fault. I love her to death. She's amazing, but like she's an Italian chef, and she's like, the way she shows love is through food. And so like I never got like love as a kid. I only got food, and so it was really hence my childhood obesity. But food is a basic need, and unlike any of the other substances, like I told you, I was an addict, right? And I've worked in rehab centers. I love working with people who struggle with addiction because it's never about the substance. It's about like the desire to escape yourself and that like low self-worth. But we can be abstinent from alcohol. We can be abstinent from cocaine. We can be abstinent from heroin, but we cannot be abstinent from food. And so when we approach this like restrictive mindset with something that is such a basic need to us, the primitive part of the brain, which deals with our eating behaviors, like all animals have this part of the brain, you know, like I have a dog and my dog doesn't eat a milkshake and is like, uh-oh, like I'm not going to fit into my bikini in the summer. Like he's like, oh yeah, I'm good. Right. You know? And so the part of our brain that actually deals with the motivation to engage in eating actually does not understand good and bad food. It only knows survival. The part of our brain that deals with this good, I'm bad is this conscious part of the brain. And it's a very young and new part of the brain. It's where all of our executive functioning, it's where all of our impulse control is. It's where my preferences are, my goals live. So I like the color pink, you like the color blue. I want to go to Pilates. Like that lives in this conscious part of the brain, which is what makes us human. But our eating behaviors live in the primitive part of the brain. And so when the conscious brain, like if we're ever in a state of stress, and even just thinking about what I should eat or not eat could be stress. Oh, I'm late for work. Oh, he didn't text me back. Like these states of stress, the amygdala in the brain fires and the prefrontal cortex, like the part that makes us human, just shuts off. So we don't have impulse control. We don't have executive functioning. And the part of our brain, the primitive part of our brain that deals with eating is never going to understand this is good or bad for me. So restricting it literally doesn't work.
You said something really fascinating in the TED Talk as well. And I love this. I love when there's like research to back things up and to explain things that most people think are not real. Like that milkshake where you had one milkshake that was supposedly with more calories in it, and then the other one didn't. And depending on what they were perceiving of that changed the internal influences, like hormones didn't, like that blew my mind because we've touched on this like brain gut connection. I literally to this day believe that I made myself believe I was celiac, and then I realized I wasn't.
Me too.
and it's so weird. I have this friend of mine who actually is celiac. She got tested for it. She is. And her whole life she was having Vector cereal. And I'm like, girl, like this is wheat. Like, you shouldn't be able to have this. She's like, well, I mean, no, it's like, I can digest this. Like my mom gave this to me and she knows about it. Like this says that there's wheat in it. I'm like, do you ever get affected? She's like, no. And that was the moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, how much have I been doing this to me?
It's really powerful. And I mean, the gut brain connection is very important, but it's like the tip of the iceberg. Like literally any thought that you have releases chemicals into the bloodstream in the form of hormones and neurotransmitters. And those neurotransmitters and hormones travel in the bloodstream and bind to the cells, right? And so on every single cell that we have, whether it's like an organ or like even a fat tissue, like a fat cell, adipose tissue, it's attached to a nerve. And so what you're thinking releases the signal to tell that cell how to behave. And so if you're eating something that, can I swear on here? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
If you're eating something that you think is like going to make you fat, like it is, right? If you're like, this donut is going straight to my ass, oh my God, got to work off tomorrow. Like you're literally telling your body what to do. And so it's really powerful stuff. And I think when we can recognize that, we can also like take back our power in a way, because the way that I see it, it's either you get behind the behavior or you change it. But if you eat the thing and you think you shouldn't, we got big problems here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Like that's where I was realizing I need to like calm my nervous system down. When I was in that period of time where I briefly mentioned, like I was at war with myself when I didn't want to eat that slice of cake. Eventually I started working on that, and I like ground myself before being like, it's okay. Like I can digest this. I'm healthy. Like I'm allowed this. And with time, my stomach stopped hurting. I didn't really change what I actually, if anything, incorporated more things into my diet that I hadn't before. It was very restrictive, and it works for some people. But for me, I think I just wasn't grounded mentally and was, like I said, not in a good headspace. Like I'd use it to like penalize myself.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't for like fuel, which is something I'm really trying to adopt to myself, like viewing food as fuel, like viewing it as the bottom line. But you mentioned something about self-sabotage. That's I read a book about it, and I was blown away by all of the times like I've been self-sabotaging myself. So do you want to talk about that? Because you've worked with a lot of women with self-sabotage, and if there's any patterns that are most common.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm like fascinated by self-sabotage. The first thing I'll say is self-sabotage is exclusively a human trait. So you would never see a squirrel being like, I don't deserve to store nuts for the winter. Or like I said about the human beings, we're so, evolved and have so much of this intelligence that it actually, our capacity to be able to view ourselves from that third party perspective and make a judgment is almost what gets in our way. And so the way that I like to describe self-sabotage is, do you have an animal, or like, do you have any pets?
I don't currently, but I have friends who have lots of animals that I love. I'm an animal lover. My parents just can't have one right now.
Animal or no animal, if you think about your favorite piece of jewelry or like a pet that you love like so much, you would never take your engagement ring and like smash it on the ground and then step on it a bunch of times. Like you'd be like, you'd protect that thing with your life. Like you put it away on the bedside table. Like you take care of these things, right? Because you love them. And so self-sabotage in itself is actually the side effect of low self-love or self-worth. Because when you love yourself or you love something so much, you want to take care of it. You want to protect yourself. And I might get canceled for this, so I'm so sorry, but I'm just a very like blunt person. But
me too.
The body positivity movement, I think, like can be quite toxic in some ways because
I agree.
You know, and I'm not going to even like throw numbers out here, but if you are like treating yourself or self-sabotaging and not treating yourself in a healthy way, like, is that really body positive, right? If we're going to be body positive, we have to treat our bodies positively. And the only way that we can really get there is through loving ourselves so much that, you know, making healthy choices becomes easy. And this is not to say like we're humans and we need that fluidity. Like we need up and down, light for dark, like the dichotomy of life exists. We're going to have good days and bad days. And we have to be okay with that. Like I'm certainly not perfect and none of my clients are. And the goal here is not to be perfect and treat yourself amazing every day. But the goal is to love yourself so much that even when you have bad days, the narrative doesn't become I'm bad, I'm a failure. Because your daily behaviors match your deepest beliefs about yourself, not your goals and your dreams. So if you have the belief of I'm a failure, you're going to behave in ways that match failure mentality. And then it's just this cyclical cycle of, oh my God, I overate again and I hate myself. And like you look in the mirror and you're like, fuck, I look fat. And then you treat yourself as if you are, right? Rather than that pushing you to work towards your goals, it actually sabotages your success. So the root of all self-sabotage is low self-love. If you want to stop self-sabotaging, you have to learn to love yourself first.
100%. And you also mentioned the mother wound. Does that play a part in the sabotaging for at least women?
Oh, yeah. The mother wound is a deep one. I'm also a mother. So I'm like a hand on heart, like fully recognizing that like, and this is not my quote, this is Gabor Mate, but if you're a parent and you think you're going to fuck up your kids, like, don't worry, you will. Like that, like truly, you know? Mm-hmm. And so this isn't to, you know, push blame or anything like that, but there are many archetypes of clients that find me, but always when it comes to an unhealthy relationship to food or weight, there's always a mother wound present. And that's because our mother is our first access to food. Like it literally is where we receive our breast milk, right?
Never thought of that.
Yeah. And so depending on, and listen, like I have 2 kids, they're both C-sections. I didn't breastfeed either of them. So like, again, not perfect, right? But when you mentioned Maslow's triangle of needs, right? And you're like, food is right at the bottom. It's a basic need. But the interesting thing about human beings is that even before food, water, shelter, sex, etc., is attachment. And what attachment is this unconditional love and care from primarily the mother as soon as we're born. Because without that attachment, we literally can't get access to food, water, shelter, sex, etc.
Right. Yep.
Right. And so a horse can like get up and run the day it's born and like fend for itself. But human beings literally require the love and the attention from the people around them to survive. So our desire and need for attachment and acceptance and unconditional love becomes so much more important than the actual substance itself. And so I'm going to take you back to when I'm 8 years old and I'm like, I don't fit in and nobody loves me. And the cutest boy in school that I think that I love, like calls me fat. And it's just like immediately I'm rejected, right? Yeah. It's not that, you know, my conscious brain, my 8-year-old brain was like, I want to hide and never come out again. Like I never, ever want to come out of my room. But the subconscious part of my brain that deals with like eating and, you know, survival was like, oh my God, I am not accepted. I am not loved. And therefore, I'm going to die. I'm not going to have access to food. And so the body and the brain start to like go into survival mode and shut down. And then it wants to gain more access to food. And it's just this like really awful cyclical cycle. But going back to the mother wound, the mother is our first access to food. And sometimes I have clients that have wonderful, wonderful mothers that, you know, cut the crusts off their kids' foods and give them the healthiest things in the whole world. And those kids still develop eating behaviors because oftentimes, and if you're a mother and you're listening to this, listen up because this is the most important thing I'm going to say today. Your children are not going to do as you do for them. They're going to do as you do for yourself. So if you're a mother and you do everything for your kids and you're eating like the crusts and you're always on the go and you're never sitting down and you're not taking care of yourself, or you have a negative self-talk, like you're literally modeling that for your children. And so in my household, like I make the best meals for myself. And like my kids get chicken fingers and like, that's okay because they're going to learn how to take care of themselves based on how I take care of me. And of course, like I'm meeting their basic needs, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, that is so interesting because like most women are like, I'm going to think about my kids, everybody else other than themselves first. Mm-hmm. So it's so interesting. Like they think that they're doing the best thing for their family and their children, but it's doing actually sometimes the opposite. Yeah. And that must be that's probably hard to accept because I think about my own mom, like she's doing everything for everyone. And I do recognize like when I had a conversation with her, and I don't know what you recommend for people that have possibly mothers that don't have a good relationship with food. Maybe we can touch on that after because at least I have a mom that's more in the middle. Like she's open about that, but she's very like she works out a lot. She's like, I can see that she uses it more as fuel more than ever now. But when she was younger, she really had a hard time with her body image and food. And it reflected on myself and my sister 100%. It was really hard for her to hear how those connected. And we were able to work past it and, you know, like not put the blaming thing on because at the end of the day, she never really meant to do any of that. But it is hard for women, mothers specifically, that try and do everything for their children, and it doesn't always work out in the way they would have hoped. But how would you recommend for people that have mothers who don't have a great relationship with food, and that's kind of reflected on them?
Yeah. So first of all, if you're a mom and you have the martyr syndrome, you're literally just teaching your kid to self-abandon. Like, you're going to teach your kids, abandon your own needs and take care of everyone else. So that's the first thing I'll say about that. The second thing I'll say is, I don't know if it was like the 80s and the 80s and 90s for sure, but like that, the poor generation, like the generation, our mothers, like, they lived through a really hard time. There was a lot of misinformation about nutrition out there. There was, low fat everything. Like, and you said this before too, where it's like, why do we punish with food? Why do we reward with food? Well, because if we go back to what I said about attachment, more important than like what actually feeds our survival is the desire to fit in. And so if we're told things like we have to be thin to fit in, we will do whatever it takes to actually fit in, unless you've done a lot of the inner work. And then I congratulate you. It's taken me many years and a lot of degrees.
Not there yet. It's a never ending thing for me.
The same girl. We're on the same track. But, this is okay. You can't teach an old dog new tricks sometimes. So it's not your responsibility to change that narrative. If you're an adult and you have a mother that like you can see has imprinted some of these negative narratives about body and they've affected you, and you have a mother that's open to that conversation, have it in whichever way you can. But actually, like, my favorite thing to do with this is really just, and we actually call this cognitive disassociation in psychology, or it's a form of it. But I really like to say this one sentence, and it saved my life in so many ways, not just with like eating and my mom, but like anything, any like pressure I felt from like my parents or people around me. And the sentence is, you say this in your head, of course, not out loud. Love you, Mom, but that's not mine, that's yours. And as soon as we kind of separate that, as soon as we can recognize, like, because we identify with our mothers, like we literally feel like we are a part of our mothers. And so as soon as we can actually separate our own identity from theirs, we can kind of take back control of our life, and also like not put blame. It's like, you got you, I got me. I'm going this way, you're going that way. It's all good. But it protects us from that like trigger of, this, because the only reason why we get triggered is because like we feel it within us. Right. And so it's just
exactly.
Like, yeah, that's not mine, that's yours.
Yeah, that's so smart. Like, I always find that saying things out loud, even going back to like self-sabotage, if it doesn't involve anybody else but yourself, like I will try and catch myself being like, okay, no, I love you, Bianca. Let's try again. And it's like resetting that. It's like kind of stopping the pattern. What is it? Like, like you're like resetting yourself, because you can just, I tend to ruminate like that. Like it's so quick for me to ruminate. I just find myself just like stopping and taking a moment and like honestly getting into like a parent role. My aunt likes to say like, you're getting into your higher wisdom role. Then that will, at least for me, reset myself to try again in a better way. And I'm going to fuck up multiple times. I'm going to do it over and over again. I know. But eventually, like, the time apart will grow. At least that's what I've witnessed. The time apart will grow. The time apart of like where I'll get into a moment of like, oh, body image is not great right now. I'm noticing that. Like, let me reconnect with myself, because it is hard for women that are constantly being compared to other women. Aging is a whole other thing to what you used to look like. And it's really hard to always feel grounded. And like you said, not being perfect is probably like one of the best blessings that you can give yourself, is to be like, I'm not even going for perfection. I'm just trying to be like 1% better.
Yeah. I actually posted about this last night. I was like deep in thought at 10 p.m. This is not my quote again. I believe this is Louise Hay, who I love. She's written many books if you're interested, but one of the quotes was, when you're thinking about yourself, ask yourself, is this a loving thought for me? And if it's not, you can say, thank you for your opinion, and then you let it go. And the reason why this is so important is because, I just told you, your daily behaviors match your deepest beliefs about yourself. And so in a very almost like selfish way, like if you actually want to change your reality, if you actually want to be healthy, if you actually want to be like wake up at 6 a.m. every morning, like if you actually want to do these things, you have to change the way you talk to yourself. But the brain is such an interesting muscle. And I do call it a muscle because it's just a bunch of habitual wires that are wired in, honestly, from being in our mother's stomachs up until the age of 7 is the subconscious wiring. And then we continue and to keep replaying those programs. But the brain's number one job is to remain consistent to its identity. And so every day when you wake up, you don't have to reteach yourself how to brush your teeth. Like, right? Mm-hmm. It's these things get like pushed into the subconscious. You don't have to reteach yourself not to walk when there's a red light. Like, we know these things. And so these habitual thoughts that we have about ourselves, we can't always control. They're like patterns. They're wired in there. However, once we can recognize we're having an unhelpful or unhealthy thought about ourselves, if we can stop right there and then go, I'm going to let that one go. It's almost like we don't reinforce that same program. And just like learning how to play the piano or learning how to play basketball or like learning a new skill, we can actually retrain the brain how to think differently about ourselves. And that's where the real magic comes in, because it's also like non-emotional. It's like, that's not mine. Like, in a very non-emotional way, I can just go, oh, don't like that one. Let's think this one instead. Yeah. and we can reprogram, because sometimes I think when we get so deep into the inner child healing and all of these like emotions and we're bringing it all up to the surface, like time and place for sure we need it. But sometimes it could just be so heavy and the brain's actually not meant to be wired that way. Like, the brain is very non-emotional. The body's very somatic, right? And so when we can take this non-emotional approach and just like reprogram, you're so much more likely to get to your destination much quicker.
Wow, that's a really good way of putting it. Like, your brain isn't emotional, but your body's somatic.
The brain's survival. Like, it's like, am I living or dying? That's it.
Yeah, and so I meditate like almost every morning. Been getting my mom into meditation. She's 61. Finally getting her into meditation. It's already being like a game changer for her. But you are also involved with like hypnotherapy. Am I right?
Yeah.
So I sometimes do like hypnotic meditations myself. And when I discovered that, it was like game changing for me with past trauma, sexual shame, eating issues. Like, I would say that's one of the top things, even above therapy, as to why I feel like those belief systems are almost like dissipating and like creating new ones. Would you say, like, is that why you kind of got into that for eating as well? Because it can be such a complex thing.
Yeah. Eating, our relationship to food is the most important relationship we're ever going to have, because it keeps us alive. Like, our relationship to food and our relationship to ourselves. But I love what you said about the therapy thing. And this is not to knock therapy. Like, I was in therapy my whole life, literally as a teen. And I even have therapists who are like psychologists who do my program, and they're like, I've literally never seen anything like this. It's so different. And people that have been in therapy for years and years, and it doesn't solve the problem. Like, yes, some of the issues become less of a trigger, or they're able to recognize some of their past, but your brain is extremely powerful, and its number one job is really to keep you to survive. Like, it's not wired for success, it's wired for survival. And so I have actually a specific example with a woman who had emotional eating and just depression and honestly, like, symptoms of paranoid schizophrenia when I met her. And she became a client of mine. And through some of the processes that I used, we actually uncovered a sexual trauma. Sorry, I should have said trigger warning, but we uncovered a sexual trauma from when she was really, really young. She's been in therapy her whole life. Like, she's never been able to go that deep and pull that out, because her brain, it was so traumatic for her that her brain literally blocked it out altogether. Yeah. And so, like, I'm not saying that that's going to happen when you do hypnosis. Again, hypnosis can be one of those things where it's almost non-emotional and we don't have to go there, and we just kind of reprogram, which is so fun. But the other thing is, when we're in this conscious state where our conscious mind or our like beta brain is active, we are so not able to access the parts of the habitual parts of us that maintain our behaviors and our beliefs about ourselves, because so many of them are hidden, and unless we tap into that theta brainwave state, or unless we have somebody facilitating, like, to help us actually get to the nitty gritty. I like to call it like the dark and twisty places in the brain, or cleaning out the cobwebs that we just like never want to touch or we never want to go to. Unless it's facilitated properly, we're in that theta state, we can't really easily access it. And there's a reason for that. It's a survival reason. It's to protect us.
Yeah. So when you are doing hypnotic meditations, it's going into a different brain wavelength.
Yeah. So we're going into the theta brainwave state, and the theta is best for behavior change. There's many different hypnotic states. Like, when you go to a magic show and they like hypnotize the person and they're quacking like a chicken and clucking, that's a totally different brainwave state. And with that type of brainwave state, behavior change is actually not like long-term behavior change in the conscious mind is not possible, because your conscious mind is like fully turned off. But in a theta brainwave state, this is where we have learning. This is where we have our subconscious mind. And so we're able to access what's subconsciously programmed into us, which is not our own programming. It's whatever happened to us in our mother's stomach up until the age of 7. So like a 7-year-old's not creating its own life. A 7-year-old is like listening to the people around it and letting them create the programming. And so one of the things I see in my clients is, especially if they had childhood obesity or they were like fat as a kid, just like me, they just have this construct of like, I'm always going to be overweight. So even if they lose the weight, they'll gain it back, because the belief about themselves is like, I am this person. And we have to go in there and like change that belief.
Yeah. Obesity is something that is so difficult to like overcome. Mm-hmm. And I'm learning more and more about that. And also, for anybody who has not personally experienced obesity, that like weight bias where they're judging them and they don't actually recognize how difficult it really can be. Yeah. And even if I'm not wrong, like genetic as well. Mm-hmm. So how is it that when you work with all these women, that they're able to maintain this weight loss? Is it through is that like core psychology, like the thing that's missing? Because I didn't learn that in my school. And now I'm like, wow, it really is like a missing piece, in my opinion, with that.
Totally. And this isn't to correct in any way, but there's no part of obesity that's genetic. Like,
is it really? So why is it that I'm taught that in school?
Yeah. Well, there's not a single gene that says this person's going to have more adipose tissue than that person. Not a single gene. There are genetic mutations that can make somebody predisposed to have blood sugar dysregulation, or even there's one called the DRD2 gene. It's like one of my favorite ones to study, but that gene will make an individual engage in seeking pleasure more frequently than somebody who doesn't have a mutation on that gene. And so like there are like little genes here or there that can be predictive of like this person's gonna end up obese, but there's not a single gene that's like this person's going to be overweight and this one won't. And with genetics, we have the genome, which is like the blueprint. So like I have a predisposition to diabetes, high blood pressure, etc. And then we have the phenome, which is the environment, and that's what turns it on. So even if you have the genetic code for it, you need to be in the proper environment to turn it on. And what turns it on is stress and different traumatic experiences. So that's that component of it. But obesity is a psychological issue, because not a single person wakes up and says, I want to be overweight. I don't know a single one. If you find somebody who's like, I want to be unhealthy, like, please send them my way. Like, and truly, and not in a ironic way. You know what I mean? But this isn't a choice. Okay. And this is one of the things that I love and hate so much about food addiction, or like the addiction, world, is because there's so much bias and shame that's put onto these. Oh, they're out of control. They have no willpower. Exactly. It's about discipline. And it's actually none of those things, because nobody wakes up and says, I want to ruin my fucking life today. I want to nobody.
Or it's even about like people on the street.
Yeah.
Or like addicts.
And the worst part is that bias, not only are others thinking about it, and even if you're like a wonderful, accepting human being and you're never thinking about it, because there is so much bias, the individual who's suffering with it is already assuming you're thinking about it. We call this a humiliation wound, and from like a core wound perspective or a soul wound perspective, it's when you humiliate yourself before anyone else can. And this is a big one for me. Like, I'm a
That's me.
I'm already like very self-critical no matter what. Cancel, clear, delete. I'm working on it. But, you know, when you look in the mirror and you're like, oh God, like it's like you humiliate yourself before anyone else can, almost to tell yourself like, hey, go do something about it. But like I said, like if you think that about yourself, then your behaviors will match that thought, right? And so with my clients that struggle with obesity, like the number one thing, because it's a very ugly cycle that feeds it, like when they engage in, okay, they overate at a family event, and then the narrative automatically becomes, oh no, I've ruined everything. I'm going backwards. What are they thinking about me? Like when we have that narrative, it just actually feeds the cycle and keeps you exactly where you are. And so when I'm working with my clients, like we have to reprogram the brain. Like first and foremost, we have to reset true hunger cues, because a baby is not going to cry for food if it's not hungry. So if you don't actually know when you're hungry and you don't know when you're full, if you can like eat and never feel that full signal, or if you like don't feel hungry all day long, like you do not have hunger cues that are set properly. And the body is never ever going to want to be overweight. The body wants to be adaptively very fit because it's designed to run away from danger, right? Well, and so it's the brain that seeks pleasure. So anyways, we have to reset the hunger cues. Once we reset the hunger cues, we have to actually do the reprogramming and the rewiring. So that involves like brain reprogramming, hypnosis. It involves like understanding the traumas, bringing it up to the surface. It also involves like dealing with the psychological constructs, like the limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves. And in this process, the most important thing is to really teach the individual how to love themselves so much so that they treat themselves well. Love themselves if they're good, love themselves if they're bad, in quotations, whatever. And then once we do that, there's a component of my program specifically where it's rebalancing. So like, yes, people with metabolic disease have like high blood sugar. People might have high cholesterol. People might have thyroid conditions. And that's where I get to use the functional medicine to actually bring all that stuff into balance. So if we look at like the perfect circle of it, where we have reset, rewire, rebalance, we're really working on all areas to bring the body and the brain into balance. And at that point, like my biggest claim to fame is like when you change the brain, you lose the weight, and the weight loss is forever. Whereas every single diet that you look at in research has a 98% fail rate. Every single diet. That's why the dieting industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and obesity rates continue to rise. They're designed to fail. And so if you gained it back, it didn't work. It's not that you didn't have willpower. It's not that you didn't try hard enough. It's not that, oh, Christmas ruined it all. It's that you didn't change the nervous system. When you change the nervous system, the weight loss is forever. So that's my spiel on it, but that's what I do with these clients.
Yeah. And there's I can't even imagine like this, like Ozempic, like these weight loss drugs, and how that's basically exploded through social media. And like, what are your thoughts on that? Because
I know I have to be really careful with what I say, but I first learned about Ozempic in 2016 before it existed under the name brand of Saxenda. And it is a drug that is meant for type 2 diabetes.
Because
I know. Even in the obesity clinic, but if I first learned about Ozempic, wanted to lose weight, because the thing with Saxenda or under the name the GLP-1s is that they make you feel so nauseous that you're just not interested in eating. And so people would lose weight on them because they're eating significantly less, right? But if you don't have metabolic disease, like type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure all together, Ozempic sometimes doesn't even work. So I have clients that would like go on it and they would lose like 5 pounds, and they like feel awful all the time. And my biggest issue with the whole Ozempic rage, like, first of all, a lack of Ozempic is not the reason why you're obese. So adding Ozempic in is not going to solve your problem. Like, I'm like a root cause type of person. Like if you have an imbalance somewhere, brain, body, whatever, putting something in there that is not the reason that you have it is not going to solve the problem. It's a Band-Aid approach. And so you have to get to the root of like, how did I get this way? Because nobody's destined to be overweight. Our bodies want to be healthy. They want to survive. That's like what we're meant to do. And so it's a magic pill approach. But the other thing is we have so little research on like long-term effects, especially because we have all of these people taking it who don't have metabolic disease. And we're seeing really high rates of thyroid cancers. We're seeing very rapid aging of cells. And like, I'm genuinely concerned about what's going to happen in the future. Yeah.
Well, no, I've been like that myself, even mental illnesses.
Especially.
I'm okay. I'm somebody that was like, I'd rather the root. I'd rather suffer and go to the root long term. Like meditation isn't always like meditation isn't a magic pill, you know, working on reprogramming your brain, journaling, like sitting with yourself, but then like catching yourself in the patterns, like being okay to look messy in those moments. Like that is okay with me. I know that there's some people that would rather just go the magic pill route or the quick fixes. Like I just spoke about this with my aunt last week because she's just going through like, she's on her like third husband almost, where it's like a very difficult time. And it's not always like something like the first partner passed away. The second one, it was just an abusive, marriage. And the third one, he has early onset dementia.
Oh no.
I'm like, how is it?
Poor woman.
I know, poor woman, but she's still like, we spoke all about meditation and how that's really like helping her. But I was like, how is it that you choose to go like the long-term route fixes? Because there's so many people that would rather be like, oh, that's not for me. Like, it doesn't work for me. I'm just going to take that pill. I'm not completely against it as long as they acknowledge the route. For me, I'm like, I want to just temporarily suffer a bit to try and figure out the route, because deep down, I know that's the way to go.
Yeah. The nervous system is extremely complex. So, if you have high blood pressure medication will actually lower your blood pressure. It's not a root cause approach. It's still a bandaid approach, but like we can see like X plus Y equals like A plus B equals C, 1 plus 1 equals 2. With the nervous system, we're really just shooting in the dark. Like most of the time we're put on SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Yeah. But if somebody has been through like the loss of a parent or something, right? Like it's not for lack of serotonin, like they're experiencing grief. Yeah. And even in this client that presented with like truly, because I used to be like, I'm not pro mental health medication because we don't know what we're doing with it. If you have suicidal ideation or if you need it, really, if we look at the studies, not many of them have been studied for more than 6 to 8 weeks. So it's like temporarily, and then we get out of it, right?
Weeks. And that's what I learned as well. Yeah.
Fine. But then you have to get out of it, right? So I'm not like, if you need to be on it, please be on it. If you have suicidal ideation, and I used to say all the time with schizophrenia, because we can actually see a positive correlation between reduction of hallucination symptoms and taking the medication. Whereas you have a room full of like thousands of people with depression who are on SSRIs. And I bet you if you asked how many of you guys still have depression, every single one would raise their hand. Like it actually doesn't solve the problem. It just kind of like creates this apathy or numbness. Again, you need it. It's temporary, but then we need to be looking at the long-term solutions. It's the nervous system is too, intricate to approach it with a one-size-fits-all experience. And even it's the same thing with meal plans. It's like, why am I going to go look at Kelly weightlifter and what she's eating in a day when like my body's different than hers and my body's going to change every single day? Like my clients say like, what should I be eating? I'm like, oh no, you tell me. What does your body want? Because like, I can't tell you 60 grams of protein, but your body literally changes on a day-to-day basis. And we need to allow for that flexibility. But in order to do that, we need to be like tapped in enough to like actually hear what's happening. And it's the same thing with mental health. I was going to say this. I used to say the schizophrenia for sure, until I met this client that had full-blown schizophrenia. And then when we realized it was just childhood trauma, like a really serious trauma, once we brought it up to the surface and I used like a bunch of different techniques, she like literally doesn't experience paranoid symptoms at all anymore. And I was like mind blown. I was like, it's the first time I've seen that. So
yeah, that could be an entirely other episode, because I've become fascinated with that myself and just like trying to figure out the roots of some people. Like I believe schizophrenia and bipolar, those are two that are like much more complex. Like lithium hasn't really been changed since the beginning, time. Yeah. So it's like, it makes you wonder, but yeah, you're right. And I even nowadays, I'm like trying to think about it. I'm like, I can't really believe that they're just thinking for my well-being. Like I will recognize that this is something I need to get through this crisis, but I need, how am I going to be there for myself? Because I need to be there for me. Yeah. And the more I come back to that, the more I'm like, okay, like really at the end of the day, you have to be your own advocate for your health, for your mental health. When I realized that, and I wasn't for a long time, I was blaming people. I was blaming everybody left, right, and center and my environment. And I was staying victim the whole time. And then I realized I need to take accountability for myself and really change that up. But to finish this off, since this is the 20s detox, it's all about also like the unlearn, relearn, learn cycle as well. Like I'm learning things, unlearning things. Like we were just saying, like there's some things that we need to unlearn. But if you had to think about one thing in the last like year or so, that's like a major unlearning or subtle, it can even be subtle. It can be a feeling that I need to make sure like I unlearn, like to let that go in a certain instance. But do you have something that comes to mind?
It's so interesting that you asked me this today specifically, because this was like the hardest year of my life. Like, I mean, I every like 5 to 10 years, I have like a fucking tower moment and like everything goes to shit. Like, and this was that year. And I'm somebody who built like perfect family, big mansion, husband, 2 children, white picket fence, dog, 7-figure business, like just like this perfect life, and it just all came crashing down. Like, and this year was like, and so, and it's been a mess, like a true psychological disaster, and it's felt very dark. And it's so interesting. I don't know if you follow astrology, but like, there've been a lot of eclipses and stuff. I'm really into astrology now, but Mercury, which I'm a Virgo, so Mercury is my ruling planet, just went direct yesterday. And it was like, all of a sudden I woke up and I was like, oh my God, I'm out of it. And then, because the whole time I'm in it, I'm like, what's the lesson? Because I am that type of person that's like, I'm going through this for a reason. It's going to be okay. Like everything's going to be fine. And then literally today, it just like, I had a team meeting right before you and I'm like, I got it. This is the lesson. So here we go. I'm going to share my unlearning for you guys. My learning, unlearning. Safety is an illusion. It's a complete illusion. You can do everything you can to create security and safety for yourself. You can get married. You can make somebody propose to you. You can, build a business. You can work in a job where you have a stable income versus going to be an entrepreneur. You can stay in that like comfortable relationship. Safety is an illusion. We are never actually safe. We create safety in our own nervous system. And we do that by allowing ourselves to really trust ourselves to get out of any danger that would like occur to us. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I think for me, like I spent so long building this like striving for this like illusion of freedom, illusion of safety. And like, then you get there and you're like, I'm actually not safe.
This is not what I thought it was going to be. That's so powerful.
And I think that just kind of roping it back into my whole message, really at the end of the day, like the thing that the body follows the mind. So your nervous system is governing every single thing you do. And if you can't teach yourself, your nervous system to be regulated in dysregulated states, like shit's going to happen. Can't control that. Right. But what we can control is like how we respond to it. And do we get triggered by it? And do we allow whatever's happened to us to change our perception of ourselves? And so I would just, my message or the unlearning is like safety is an illusion, but you can create safety in any single moment and like nobody's going to do it for you.
I love that. That's done something to my brain in that moment, because I think some of the things like when you're younger in your 20s, whatever, like sometimes what keeps you going is to think of that big house, white picket fence, like with the dog, with the children.
And
like
you can have it, like,
and you can, but it's like, why don't you feel good now? And that's something I need to remind myself. Like, I'm successful now. I'm happy now. I'm so blessed right now. And when you are like, I think about it in like a time. I'm like, if I'm putting all of my like love and interest into a future timeline, I'm never going to catch up to that, because like essence is right now in the present. In the future, I'll still like, when I'm there, it'll be the present.
Like literally it's the pursuit of more, right? Like the illusion is like, oh, when I get there, I'm going to be happy. When I get there, I'm going to be safe. When I have more revenue, I'm going to have enough money. But then you get there and you're actually not safe or happy, because if you can't create that safety or happiness right now, if you can't access that feeling right now in the present moment, when you're in the present moment in the future, you're still not going to be able to access it. You're just going to want more and more and more and more. And like happiness doesn't exist there. Safety doesn't exist there. Freedom doesn't exist there. So find it now.
Yeah. Okay. So as a closing message, if you could give at least one piece of advice, but like maybe 1 to 3 piece of advice of the things that you've learned for somebody, it could even be about safety, like how to feel more safe right now in this moment, but also with like eating habits, like what are 3 core things that you think like somebody could take away from this message?
For sure. And I think that I'll go kind of refer to some of them that I use in my TED Talk because they're just like, they're really quick and easy. But the first thing is you need to be able to distinguish between true hunger and a craving. So like I usually use the broccoli test. I'm like, I can't tell you how many times I used to go into my cupboards being like, not that, not that. Ooh, I want something salty. I want something sweet. Like that's not true hunger. That's craving, And so you ask yourself, like, would I eat raw broccoli right now? And if the answer is no, you're probably not hungry. Now, that doesn't mean don't eat. You can still have the salty chips if you want, but don't go into it telling yourself, I'm starving, I'm hungry. Like you create a contradiction in the brain. It's not the truth, right? When you can recognize, this is a craving, and you can actually recognize it, you're going to be also able to recognize this is true hunger. And being able to shed a light on that is really important for your ability to choose rather than being like lured into like eating, if that makes sense. So
100%.
Establish true hunger and a craving.
That's really good.
Thank you. The second is you cannot hate your way to a body that you love. So beating yourself up, over exercising at the gym, restrictive diets, literally they don't work. You have to love yourself enough, then the body will follow. It's like I always hear people say, I'll wear the bikini when I'm thin, or I'll go on a dating app when I lose the weight. It's like, no. You'll lose the weight when you go on a dating app. You'll lose the weight when you put the bikini on. Like when you learn to love yourself, the weight comes off easily. And the last thing is your thoughts matter. So like use your brain, The way that you think literally changes the biochemical response your body has to what you're eating. And so if you think it's bad for you, but you do it anyways, you're literally sending signals to your body to have it. So one of my favorite ways that I can mitigate this, because like I love sweets, I have such a sweet tooth, and I'm never not going to eat sweets, like never. And so if I can't get behind the behavior, if I'm like, it's not like I'm eating chocolate being like, it's an apple, like that doesn't work either. But I love to say to myself, I trust that my body knows exactly how to digest this. I just trust.
That is so good.
My body metabolizes everything it doesn't need. My body wants to be healthy. Like these are like, duh,
But the affirmations though, they're so overlooked. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Like this has been amazing.
Likewise. Thank you.
I'm so excited for like, I'm going to send it to all my like girlfriends being like,
oh, that's so sweet.
Well, it's so important. And you shed light on things that I think are not shared because I don't know, the diet industry makes a lot of money. Sometimes it always comes down to that. I resonated with it. It was like an inner part of me was like, that is something you need to hear. So I really appreciate this. This was amazing.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
I hope that you have an amazing day. And like, I'm like, I don't know. I think like my inner teenager is just like getting emotional because like, she's just like, you needed to hear this. So
I'm so happy. Oh, that honestly, I love your reaction to it was everything.
I'm so glad we were able to connect and do this.
Me too. Well, have a great day. Thanks for having me.
And there you have it. Thank you so much for listening, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I think everybody, men, women, whoever we identify, need to notice the way we view food to make sure we have a good connection with food and how that can actually connect with other areas of our life. And Jiordana is such a beautiful human to help other women do this, feel better about themselves, mind, body, spirit. Please make sure to check her out on her socials, what she offers, and whether or not you might be interested in her services. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll see you next week. Bye.